Hello, everyone. Just one moment, I will share now links to slide and we'll share the links in Slack. So I pinned the link for questions, so you can already start asking questions. So hi everyone. So you still have 2 days for finishing the homework. So if there are some questions about trees in general, we can cover them as well. But yeah, we will mostly talk about the project. So what I was doing, oops, sorry. So yeah, I want to go here. So what I was doing before we started here is I was editing this README file for midterm project. Actually, so far, what I did only was I put what I had in Slack. I didn't have chance to put more information here. So hopefully now we talk more about this, about the project, and then I'll summarize everything and put this in this document. So let me just commit this. And for those who haven't read this in Slack yet, so what the idea behind this project is that we learned a lot during this, I don't know, 6 weeks, right? So we learned regression, we learned classification, we learned how to deploy models, we learned tree-based models. So we learned all that. So now it's time to put this in practice and for you to actually do these things yourself. And that will include, so like all these 7 points here. So first, you need to think about a problem you want to solve. If you don't know what you want to solve, you can get some inspiration from the data sets. So you will need to find a problem yourself that you want to solve. So this should be a regression or classification problem. And usually, like on Kaggle, for example, you can see what are the regression problems, what are classification problems. Then there are other good websites, so you can check there. And yeah, so you find the data set there. And then what you need to do is you need to describe what is the problem you solve. So I don't have an example, but remember in videos, usually at the beginning, before we start working on a project, I introduced that we're going to work on risk scoring project, and this is how it's going to use. This is how we are going to use this project. So a customer will come to us, and then we score this customer, and based on that, we will decide whether to give a loan to this customer or not. So basically, like a few paragraphs of text that describe what exactly you're trying to solve, what kind of problem you are solving with this model. And then you get this data set and you do some exploratory data analysis like we did in week 2, week 3, I think. We didn't do this last week. But yeah, you see what kind of data is there, like what kind of features are there. Then you see if you need to prepare the data set to clean it somehow, and you need to document all that. So let's say you write, so I need to remove that because of these reasons, right? And then you analyze also important features. Remember we did in what was week 3, I think, like we looked at important features. So that was for classification. So we looked at mutual information. We looked at correlation coefficient. Then you can do the same also for regression. So for example, for regression, you can find important variables by, for example, doing correlation, or there are metrics that allow you to compare to see importance of categorical variables when the target is numerical. You can look it up. Like what you need to do is correlation. So let me just correlation between categorical and continuous variable, and then you will find many different answers, like how exactly you can measure this correlation, and this will give you an idea of importance. Okay. So you need to do that, and then you train multiple models. So if you're solving a regression problem, then you can try and train, for example, logistic regression. You can try rich regression, and then you can try different tree-based models for regression. At least you can also try other models if you want, even though we haven't studied them. You can also try other regression models, and the same with classification. So you can already try logistic regression, you can try tree-based models, and you can try other models that are used for solving classification problem. I don't know, like SVM, for example, support vector machines. So you need to try multiple models and then tune parameters. So let's say if you select, like if you want to use a random forest, then you play with parameters and then see which set of parameters lead to the best performance. So you did this, you saw how to do this in videos, you saw how to do this in homework. Now you need to do the same, but for your own problem. And after that, so once you selected the best model, now you will need to turn this notebook into a script. So you have the best model. So now just put this best model, a script for training the best model into a script. And then you will have this as a script, like your script for training the best model. And then you will also need to put it inside a web service like Flask, or let's say if you want to use Fast API or some other framework, go for this. You can use it as well. And yeah, deploy it locally with Docker. So this is like a bare minimum. So you don't have to deploy this to AWS or some other cloud providers, but you will get a bonus point for doing this. Yeah, so here are the data sets. If you find a good data set, please submit a pull request here. And I know for you, for those of you, for many of you, maybe it's difficult now to select a good data set. If you're not sure, you can, let's say you find a data set and you can just post this in our Slack and ask, like, do you think it's a good data set for a midterm project? And then somebody of us will just reply, yes, this is a good data set, go for this, or maybe not, don't go for this. But I think most of the data set you find will be good. Yeah, and I already got a few questions like this. Somebody showed me a data set from Kaggle. It was a Kaggle competition and asked if it's a good data set. And I think if there is a competition on Kaggle, then my answer would be yes, it's a good data set, because there was a competition on Kaggle about this data set. So it means this data set is good. So if you're looking for inspiration, I suggest to go to Kaggle and look there. But yeah, there are other websites that you can also use. Okay, I didn't finish writing this README file. So the deadline for this will be, so today is 18th. And then basically in 2 weeks, so the 1st of November will be the deadline. And then after that, so let me draw this maybe. So project deadline. It's 1st of November. Was it 1st of November? Yes, the 1st of November. And then after that, what we will do is we will do peer reviewing. So because if there are 200 projects, it's very difficult for us to review them. So we would like you to review each other and also learn from that. you will learn from your peers when doing this. So then we will have 1 week for peer reviewing. Right, and then deadline for finishing peer reviewing will be so the week after, basically. So it will be 8 November. And then for project, I think if I remember correctly, in the first video when we were just talking about this course, I said that for project you get 15 points. And then for each peer-reviewed project, you will get 3 points per project. And you will need to review 3, so times 3. And then we will also start a week with neural networks on that week. So on this 8th of November, so we'll have neural nets. But I know that it will be too difficult to learn neural nets and at the same time do peer reviewing. I'm sure it will be, because neural nets is also not an easy subject. So that's why for neural nets, the homework will be 2 weeks. So the deadline will be 2 weeks. So basically for submitting the homework for neural nets, we will need to, like, the deadline will be 20. So did I get it right? So from, yeah, 22nd of November. So basically you will have that. So you will have 1 week for peer reviewing, and then at the same time you can start learning about neural nets. So hopefully it should balance it, so you will not need to do many things. And for this peer reviewing, so what we will prepare is some sort of guidelines to help you evaluate the project. Like, is there a README? Is it reproducible? Like, is there a script for training the model, for example? Is there, like, are dependencies managed? Is Docker used? And then for each of them, you will need to say yes or no. And then ideally, you also will learn from this. You will learn how your peers are doing this. And then you will be able to provide feedback to your peers and also learn from this experience. So we'll try to release these guidelines before actually the project deadline. So you will have some ideas what exactly you will be evaluated against. I need to start preparing, but basically it will be like for each of these lines, there will be like a table. Let's say here will be like web service, for example. And then like 0 point if there is no web service. Then 1 point if it's deployed with Flask, but dependencies are not managed, for example, or some other. And then 2 points if dependencies are managed. For example, I'm not saying it will be like that. I'll still need to think it through. But just to give you an idea that this is the kind of guidelines you will receive, and you will need to think about this. Okay, let me check if there are any questions in a live chat. Yes, a question from Timur is, will some scoring system be available for midterm project? Yes, it will be. I just need to basically prepare it. So once it's prepared, I will share it with you this week, and you will see it. Then a question from Asmita is, can we get an extension for this project? Not for this project, but I mentioned in Slack that we will have 3 projects. 3 projects in general. So there will be midterm, which is this now. Then there will be a capstone project in December. And then there will be a third project. I don't know how to call it. If you have suggestions, please let me know. But there will be a third project, which will be optional for people who completed this and this in January. But for those who are behind and let's say cannot do this one, you can do this then as a third project in January. And for those who did the first two, if you really like doing projects, you can do a third project as well. So I think that will help to keep it more organized. Let's see how it will work out. And I still need to think of a good name for this third project. But I hope it will be a good solution for those who are a bit behind and cannot take part in the midterm project. So let me now go to Slido. So I want to check what kind of questions we have on Slido when it opens. So let me, in the meantime, look at live chat. So question from Quank is, will the third project affect the score on the leaderboard by any chance? I think it's, yes, it should affect, because if somebody did 3 projects, then of course they should get the points for doing this. So yes, I think the third project should affect the score. And remember that like if you want to get a certificate at the end, you will need to complete at least 2 projects out of 3. So and then another comment from Asmita, since the project are peer-reviewed, what if we find a group of people who would be able to submit the midterm project together after the deadline? But I think this is exactly what I proposed with the third project. So I think it will help to keep it more organized. Because I'm afraid that if we now will have these groups of people who are behind, it will be very difficult to stay organized. Okay. So yeah, third project is more like just for fun or for those who are behind to let you to give you a chance to catch up. And remember, we also have an article. So there is another thing called article, where you get something that we haven't covered in the course. Could be like, for example, training PyTorch models or using Fast API or deploying a model to Google Cloud or something like this. So this is something that you can also write about, create an article and publish it somewhere, and also have fun while learning, and then share it with your peers and get some scores as well for that. Okay, let's come to the questions. So the first question is, do you use unsupervised learning in daily work, and is it much more difficult than traditional supervised machine learning? I don't remember last time I needed to use unsupervised learning in my daily work. So I did need to use it for my master thesis. I think I used it for some Kaggle competitions as well. But at work, so I did something similar to clustering, which is called locality sensitive hashing, which allows you to group similar items together, which you can think of as clustering. And then at OLX, actually, we have a project which needs clustering. I just don't do this, but these projects tend to happen not very often. So that's why, yeah, that's one of the reasons actually I decided not to include unsupervised learning in the course, because I don't think it's as widely used as supervised learning. It is more difficult than traditional supervised machine learning in a way, in a sense that it's not easy to actually evaluate the performance of your clustering results. Like, let's say you group your clients into 5 groups, but how do you know if these groups are good or not? So this is difficult to know. That's probably the main challenge of unsupervised learning. How do we evaluate the quality? Okay, next question. Is there anything that we are not allowed to use? For example, if we want to use hyperparameter tuning, we're allowed to use grid search CV, randomized search CV. No, I don't think there is anything you cannot use. I just want to ask you to document if there is something you use that is not a part of the course. For somebody who will be reviewing your project, will be new information. So just give them some context and explain, like, I use grid search CV because this is easier and this is what you can do. So then you describe it and then you give a chance to your peer to learn from what you do, and then they will not be lost and they will be able to grade your homework as well. So if you do that, you can use whatever you want. And for materials from the course, like you use logistic regression or use rich regression or you use XGBoost or you use, I don't know, random forest, then you don't need to really go into details when documenting. Because I would expect that people understand that without much explanation. And then maybe it's also a good idea if somebody, let's say, wants to use not XGBoost, but LightGBM or CutBoost, which are different implementations of gradient boosting. You're free to use them in your project here as well. So, and if you use, like you can use Fast API instead of Flask, for example, you can use Poetry instead of ppenv, you can use Conda instead of ppenv. So you're basically you're free to explore what you want, play with different tools. Just be sure to document that. What are you expecting a submission in the project? I'm assuming notebooks showing EDA and data preprocessing and training script. Anything else? Yes. In addition to that, so ideally it will be a repo in Git or a folder in your Git repo, which contains the notebook showing EDA data preprocessing. Then in this notebook, I assume you would play with different models. So you would play with, let's say, logistic regression, decision tree, random forest, XGBoost. Maybe you want to play with some other model and you want to tune parameters. So you should also keep this in the notebook, this exploration, trying different parameters. And then from this notebook, you extract a training script with, let's say, just the best model. And then you also need to deploy this model, right? So you need to create this Python file that loads your pickle file or whatever way you use to save the model. So it loads that, and then it serves it with a web service, right? So you need that. Then you need a way of managing dependencies. So I recommend to use ppenv, but you can use something else like Poetry or virtualenv. But yeah, better to stick to ppenv, I think. And then you also need to package this in Docker. And also, so you have to have a Docker file, and then you also need to have a README that explains how you actually run this thing. So what you need to do to run this, if let's say a peer wants to, somebody who is reviewing this wants to run your project, they have a clear instruction how to do this. Like in README, you can just say, so first execute that. It could be Docker build -t name, and then execute that Docker run -it --rm, something like this. So they know what exactly they are supposed to do to run this. So will you help us coordinate for peer reviews? How I will decide who to review, who will review me? So for that, the way I imagine it, the way I want to organize it is now everyone is working on a project and then submit by the 1st of November. Then on the 1st of November, I see who submitted the project. And then from these people, for each of the project, I randomly select 3 people to review it. So then it means that each one of you will get to review 3 projects. And then I will send an email. I hope it will work. I still haven't written a script for that, for sending emails, but I imagine that I will be sending emails saying, hey, now you will need to review these 3 projects, and here's the form. you will need to put this hash there, and you will need to put your assessment there. And then you will have 1 week on doing that, or for doing that. I don't trust others to give me good scores on the project. Well, I would, how to say, like, I think people have good intentions. I don't think somebody will intentionally give you bad scores. And if somebody wants to give intentionally bad scores, please don't, because why would you do this? Like, seriously, don't, please, because we're here to learn. That's why, yeah, just if somebody is giving their best and you see that, like, we will have this matrix that you can use for evaluating. Yeah, so just give the score the person deserves. And yeah, and I don't have a link with me, but actually Coursera did a some research on peer reviewing, and they found out that peer reviews actually work quite well. So people don't give bad scores just for the sake of doing this. And then another reason why we have 3 people reviewing one project is exactly to avoid that. So maybe if there is one person who is giving everyone bad score, then we will take a median, for example, to avoid that. So that's why we have 3 scores. And then also think of this as your opportunity to get feedback, right? So people will write something like saying, hey, I had problems running this, and like, it's good when somebody tries to run your project. And yeah, so I don't have any answer here apart from that. And please have a bit more trust in people. I think they have good intentions. What do we need to submit for midterm project? Data codes, deployment files, etc. I think I just answered that. So I will make sure to document that as well in, where is it? This file. So we'll put like deliverables here. Maybe let me just add a note here so I don't forget. GB. So will some scoring system be available for midterm project? Yes, it will be. So as I said, we will provide a matrix that will have multiple dimensions, like parameter tuning here. And before that, I don't know, data prep. And then for each of these dimensions, you will have some criteria here saying, I don't know, no parameter tuning whatsoever. Then one model tuned, for example. And 2 is a person tuned multiple models and selected the best one. So then for parameter tuning, if you tried multiple models and selected the best parameter, you are getting 2 scores. And then whoever is peer reviewing, they will just have 3 options here in the form, like it will be parameter tuning, and then option 1, option 2, option 3. And then it's 0 points, 1 point, and 2 points. And then they will just click here, and this is how you will get your score. I hope I answered your question. How the reviewers will be assigned randomly? Yes, randomly. I think that's the easiest way. Is it okay if 2 guys work on the same data set but individually? Yes, if 2 people want to work on the same data set but individually, please do. Feel free. I imagine that there is no way to control this. Like if you go to Kaggle and you both select the same competition, just accidentally, it can happen, right? So as long as it's not exactly the same code, like as long as you don't copy from each other, that is fine. But yeah, please don't copy your code. What is the deadline for the midterm project? This is 2 weeks from now, meaning 1st of November. How the code review routine for midterm project will be organized? Do all the users be involved in this process. Yes, everyone who submitted their homework, their midterm project will have to review others. Yeah, I think I answered that. So if something is not clear, we can talk about this more in Slack. What are some things we should look into in order to select a good data set? Like for example, if you go on Kaggle and you see the number of notebooks available there, yeah, maybe it's a good indicator that it's a good data set. But other than that, you can look, let's say first, we didn't really talk about multi-class classification, right? I think it's okay if you want to do multi-class classification, but probably like first data set should be either like a binary classification. So if you see that the target is clearly 0 or 1, then I think you can go with this because you already know how to deal with numerical variables, you know how to deal with categorical variables, you have some ideas how to deal with missing data. So if you see that this data set has these things and it's similar to what we did before, this data set is a good one. If you're not sure, just ask in Slack and we will help you. Do we have to first inform you about the data set we're using? You can start working. You don't have to inform me because imagine if everyone starts informing me, I will take a lot of time to answer and I will not finish answering all your questions maybe by 1st of November. So yeah, you don't have to inform me. Please write this in Slack if you're not sure. If you think this is a good data set, just go ahead and use it. Are there any data sets that are not allowed? It's actually a good point. So there are data sets that, data sets like Titanic or Iris or wine quality data set or what else is there? Like basically data sets that Boston housing is a good example because of these ethical issues. But there are data sets that are just so common that I don't think if you use them, you will learn much because there are so many tutorials and it's, yeah, I will have a list of data sets that I do not suggest to use. If you really want to predict if somebody will survive this Titanic catastrophe, go for this. But yeah, I think this is just, how to say, I'm trying to say boring data set, but it's also, actually people died there. So anyways, so just go to Kaggle and pick a data set and you'll be fine. I cannot finish my project 1 on time, but still want feedback. Can I submit my incomplete project? Yes, please submit your incomplete project. And actually, so what I didn't mention is, so this 15 points is the max one. But I think to pass, actually, probably you'll need something like 10 points or 7. I will actually have to take a look at how many points we get to see what kind of cutoff makes sense, like in order to pass a project. But you don't have to score all 2s here to pass a project, right? So for example, if you have some problems running Docker, then you will not get 2 points here, you will get 1 and the world will not stop. So you will still learn something. And let's say if you finished here, you only did the first part, you didn't deploy, you will get, I don't know, 7 points, for example. You will still learn something and you will still get feedback. And then regarding the passing criteria, I'll just need to take a look at the actual scores at the end, because if nobody nobody gets 15 scores, then yeah. So I hope it doesn't happen, but let's see. So I want to look at the scores first. Yes, please, everyone, let's be honest and don't dump others. It's such a rare thing to see such a magnificent course. Yes, please don't do this. Be nice to each other. So we have from November 1 to November 8 to review other projects. This is correct, yes. How many points do they get for article about project? I need to check what exactly I promised in the first lesson, in the first week, 5, 10, maybe something like this. Yeah, I'll write about this. So now we don't need to write an article yet. Can we use PyTorch instead of TensorFlow? Yes, you can. How can I know my score after submission? Homework. I still have to finish grading your homework for trees. Hopefully I'll do this soon. Sorry, I didn't have time last week to grade it. I will do it as soon as I can, but don't worry, all your submissions are saved. I just need to do a couple of tweaks in my Python script for grading. That's why it's taking me so long, because I haven't done these tweaks yet. And does the model with AUC score of around 70 from validation can be used as a final model? Yes, it can be. Like it's really dataset dependent. So for some datasets, this is a good score. For some datasets, 0.6 is a good score. So for example, on Kaggle, there was a competition about click prediction, and like the best models had the like 0.65 AUC there. So it really depends on your data set. But already even with this score, some of the models can be used. So it's really case dependent, and there is no a rule for every model. So yeah, 0.70 is a reasonably good AUC value to go ahead and use this as a final model. Could you update the current leaderboard result? Yes, I could. As soon as I can, I will do this, and I will post the message in Slack. So I just need to find time to do a couple of tweaks in the script. Yeah, and then what is the peer review process? Do we get a grade for project? Yeah, I think I answered that question already multiple times. How many hours do you recommend we invest? Yeah, I don't know if for you it's easy or not. Yeah, it's up to you. If you have a job, then I think it's difficult for you to invest time. So you know the minimum requirements and just work from these minimum requirements. And the minimum requirements is that at the end you have a web service that is deployed in Docker, and then you try multiple models, and you also do some description. What else is there? So basically, if you do all that, you're good. If you want to, spend more time, do it by all means. So, yeah, if you satisfy the requirements, you will get enough scores. Don't worry. And yeah, I will also ask how many hours you actually invested, because it will be quite interesting for me to see how much time people spend, because I see that some of the students spent like 20 hours on some of the materials. So for me, like, let's say when we do other iterations of the course, I will already know how much time people will need to invest. So please write me, like when you submit your homework, please tell me how much time you spent on this. Do articles in our own website work for the final 20-point article? Yes, you can submit them anywhere you want. Did I say 20-point? Yeah, I don't remember, but yeah, they do work. But it should be like a good article. Good meaning like it's not you copy paste the code and nothing else. You actually explain what's going on there. And then about the article, so closer to that time when we work on an article, I will have some guidelines for that as well. Yeah. How we will be able to review others' projects if they work with Ubuntu and I use Windows? I won't be able to run their code. What should we do in this case? In this case, if everyone uses Docker, you will not have this problem. If they don't use Docker, then they just don't get the point for like using Docker. And if you can't run, you just write, sorry, I cannot run this. But yeah, I hope it doesn't happen. Yeah, so that's actually the whole idea behind Docker, that it's transferable between different environments. But yeah, let's say if they use JUnicorn and they don't use Docker, you will not be able to test this. Yeah, and in this case, you you will use this matrix and evaluate this. Yeah, so if there is G unicorn, then yeah, you tick that box. But I would encourage you to still try to learn from that submission, even if you cannot run this for some reasons. But I think the only problem, the only reason you cannot run something on Windows from Ubuntu is G unicorn. Other than that, everything should be runnable. Do you need to upload Docker image to the hub? No, you do not. So building locally is fine. How do we have to evaluate all models to find the final one? I think I showed this multiple times in the lessons. So you use the validation data set, you compare your model, your different models on the validation data set, and the one that has the best performance should be the final model. This is a good rule of thumb. It's not always the end of the story. So sometimes, let's say, remember we talked about cross-validation. So let's say if you do cross-validation and then you see that your model has very good performance, but also has very high standard deviation, then it's not a great model. So you probably want to have a model that has lower standard deviation, even if the performance is slightly worse. So right now, this might be just too much information for you. So just stick to this rule that whatever is the best performance on the validation data set wins. And then later when you work with this, you will develop this intuition how to actually pick the best model. So how to know if a data set is good or not? I think I answered that already. Is there anything else that we have to be aware for the midterm? Yeah, nothing comes to mind, but maybe if you're uncertain about something, please ask. What algorithm models are we allowed to use? Can we use SlideGBM? I think I answered that. Yes, you can use whatever you want. Just be sure you document this. Will the project involve deployment using Flask or Django? Please use Flask, but if you want to use Django, you can use that as well. Just be clear what exactly you're doing so others can use this, test it. And then ideally, as I said, everything you do should be at the end a Docker image that people can just run and let's say test it. So they don't really have to know if there is Django or if there is fast API or is there a Flask. So it should be a Docker image that is runnable. Yes, you're welcome. Any suggestion to get started with cloud? Yeah, so we actually have here we have some good tutorials. So let's say if you don't use AWS, so if you use AWS, so then you can just follow the materials we have, this deploying with AWS. If you don't use AWS, so what you can do is we have some articles from the community. So how to use Python anywhere, how to use Heroku. I think I need to use this in installing and using pip-env. I need to put here. But yeah, so there are some tutorials here from the community that are quite good. So let's say if you want to use Python anywhere, from what I see from this instruction, it's relatively simple and it's free. So you can just start with that and use that. So yeah, other than just going ahead and using this, I don't have any other suggestion. Do you know any free ways to deploy models? I just showed you Python Anywhere, and Heroku is also free. And then for AWS, you can just create a new account and get another free year. Oh, although for that, maybe you'll need a different credit card. But yeah, I don't know. How do you enable the package info pop-up on Jupyter Notebook? So I just use tab. So I don't think I have Jupyter running here on my computer and I need to start it. But maybe let me just show it with, so I have, let's say I use Python, IPython here, and then import NumPy, and then I just do tab. Well, let me try another one. NumPy range and then random. Yeah, you see? So I just press tab and then it shows what is there. And then when I press tab here, then yeah, it shows what kind of things I can put here. So that the same is in Jupyter Notebook. So you just go inside these parentheses and then press tab, and then you will see different options. So how are expected to document model performance in case we use competition dataset as test labels are not available and we have to submit prediction for score? So in this case, you take the dataset that is available on Kaggle and you pretend that this is the only data you have. Then you do the split into, like the usual thing, into test, validation, and train, or in just test and full train. And then you decide how you want to validate your models using cross-validation, just holding out one part of the dataset. Yeah, and just the usual thing. So you don't have to rely on the test dataset. If you want to submit your model and then just show, like maybe take a screenshot of your final performance, that's also fine, but it's not required. How the peers will be decided, I think I answered that randomly. What we should do if several model results not great as we think? Is there a requirement for model outcome or data? No, like as I said, it's always problem and data specific. So for some data sets, you just cannot get very good performance. When I click tab, it does not show as much info as yours. Is it because of different version of? Maybe just try clicking tab multiple times and it will expand. So let me just try to run Jupyter Notebook. So I want to go to my notebooks folder. Yeah, so let me run it, Jupyter Notebook. So while it's loading for me, it sometimes takes a while to load Jupyter. I don't know why. I'll take if there are questions in live chat. So Alexei, is clustering problem a load for the midterm project, multi-classification? Multi-classification, yes. Clustering, I'm not sure, probably not a good idea. Because we don't cover it here, then like it will be hard, like you will not know how to evaluate it and your peers will not know what to do with this. So yeah, better not to do clustering. Can we submit during 1/7 or only on first? I don't, Asmita, I don't know, what do you mean by that? What do you want to submit? Are you about peer reviewing, or you can submit on any day? So the deadline, like with usual homework, you can submit during the entire week. Article is a published one or LinkedIn post. It's a published one, but you can publish it on Medium, for example, or your own blog or whatever. So LinkedIn post, I don't think you can put a nice long article in a LinkedIn post. But I think there are LinkedIn articles. They don't have code. You cannot embed code there. So I wouldn't recommend to use LinkedIn articles. Medium is good. And then, yeah, if you have your own blog, then use your own blog. Okay. I don't know why it's taking so long. No, here you go. So let's say I do import NumPy as NP, and then yeah, let's say random. So now I have let's say exponential distribution, and then so I notice what I do is I click Shift Tab. So if I click Shift Tab, so then it shows the doc string. And if I do this multiple times, I press Shift Tab, and then it expands. And then I can see what and yeah, funny thing is for me, I don't even realize that I do this. I have this muscle memory. That's why I wasn't saying this out loud. So now you know how to do this. So you just go there and do Shift Tab. If you do this only, so if you do Shift Tab only once, you will have like a small thing. If you do this twice, it will expand, right? And then I think this thing, yeah, puts it here. And then other thing you can do, I think you can just put a question mark here, and then it will also show a doc string. Another thing, I think you can put help. Yeah, and now it will just print the doc string. Okay, let's see if there are any other questions. So in OLX, do you work only in data science team, or you also leverage your past SV experience from time to time? Yes, from time to time, I do use my software engineering skills. So mostly now I spend my day in meetings. So I don't do a lot of hands-on work. Like a few years ago, I would just code all day long, but now I do also a lot of meetings. So these days I don't leverage my past software engineering experience as much as before. But yeah, there are always cases when, let's say, I need to deploy something, or well, yeah. So this is very useful. So because in my opinion, data science is still an engineering thing. So you need to write a lot of code, and having background in software engineering in programming is very helpful. So I think we covered that. And we covered that as well. So I hope you get an idea how I actually do this. I now also realized that I do this Shift Tab. I thought I'm just doing tab, but no. So another question from Asmitas, can we write an article, save it on Git and share on LinkedIn? Yes, I think writing an article on GitHub is good. So you can basically have an article there. Yeah, I would suggest to try Medium. It's not as difficult as it seems. And then in Medium, they can also start recommending your article, so more people will see it. But it's up to you. GitHub is fine. If you want, you can actually turn any GitHub repo into a website. It's called GitHub Pages. GitHub Pages. So you can just look it up and see what it is, and maybe instead of just putting your article in a Git repo, you can very easily, well, not easily, but what's the right word? Basically, it's possible to turn this Git page into a page, like a blog page. So you will need to follow this. Like for me, it's not difficult if you're not coming from engineering background, or you haven't done this before and you're not very comfortable using command line. It will take more time for you to actually figure this out. But I think it's worth investing some time into seeing how it works, because you can easily have your own website for free, like entirely for free. You don't need to do anything else. So, and actually, I have a secret. It's not a secret, actually. The Data Talks Club is actually a page that is run on GitHub Pages. So let me just open this. So this is the page on Git. And like all you see on the website is here. So this is, I use GitHub Pages for hosting that, and it's free. So all I need to pay is this domain, datatalks.club, and the rest GitHub provides for free. So I hope I convinced you to try. Okay. Where is it? Regarding docstring, I think you can also put question type mark twice on Jupyter to get more info. Let's try that. Oops. Yeah, looks like it's the same as one question mark. Not sure what's the difference. What happens if I put 3? Oh, okay, it doesn't like 3. Okay. Can we host ML models on GitHub pages? I don't think you can, because you actually need a web server, and GitHub pages only can serve static pages like HTML. So unfortunately, you cannot host machine learning models on GitHub pages. Is there anything else? So I think we should be wrapping up. So I will release the video with solution to 3 based models to the previous week on Wednesday. So I think I'll just pre-record the video and we'll put it on GitHub. Yes, GitHub, YouTube, and yeah, we can. If you have any questions, we can talk about them in Slack. And I think I don't see if there are more questions. I think there are no questions. So thanks for joining me today. Thanks for asking questions, and please enjoy your midterm project. And if you have any concerns or doubts or anything, just write in Slack. And yeah, have fun and enjoy learning.